Our next speaker is a wonderful young lady. A wonderful young lady. Let it not be said that young people cannot. You know now people say young people and then whatever they finish the sentence with is never empowering. These people have not met Norah Magero. Norah is the CEO and founder of Drop Access. She has done amazing things in the renewable energy space, award-winning global things that started with one idea. There is no idea too small. There is no idea that cannot come to pass when it is fueled by passion and fueled by a big dream. There is no idea when you listen to Norah, there is no idea that you can't iterate and iterate until it comes out fine, polished, and can create such a difference and make huge impact. Drop Access has designed solar-powered Vaxibox to chill vaccines, enable them to get to remote areas. She's a mechanical engineer by training, but a renewable energy enthusiast and expert, and she's done great things for women in the STEM space, encouraging young women to come to the table and get things done. We recently also invited Norah to speak to girls at the Kenya High School, which is a school that has girls who are generally thought process oriented and wanting to go get things done. And she did an amazing job. There was a rousing response that we can actually do it and not listen to the voices in our heads that tell us that we can't. So she has been awarded great things, Philanthropy Award winner, Young African Leaders winner. She's part of the Microgrid Academy. She's made history by becoming the first Kenyan to win the Royal Academy of Engineering Africa Prize for Engineering on Innovation. I've repeatedly told you on this pulpit, is this a pulpit? Today it's an energy pulpit. I've repeatedly told you on this energy pulpit this morning that Kenyans are doing great things. And we in the energy space need to rise and do that. So when you hear that Norah is the first Kenyan to win this award, it is no small thing. So I want us to open our eyes and our ears and our minds and our hearts and our souls as we listen to Norah. Over to you, Norah. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I hope you can hear me. Maybe you can just give me a nod. So I proceed?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Norah. Over to you.
Awesome, great. All right, thank you so much. It's really such an honor to be here. I've always really don't take it for granted every time that I'm invited to be part of the World Energy Day. And I think the members and the organizers of this forum are people who've stood by me through the journey of what I've done over the years, and also have developed myself in the industry, and also positioning myself not just to be innovator and an influencer in the energy space, but also to be somebody who's going to drive Africa's future for green energy transition, for us to be able to take charge of our technologies, but then also to make economic gains for the continent, as there's so much financing that is flowing within the energy industry. So thank you so much, and it's such an honor to be back here once again. I would have loved to be there in person. Currently in Rwanda, there's the Gogla conference happening, and also I had another event with AFCIA where I was pitching, and we're pitching our product Vaxibox. But I won't go so much into Vaxibox right now till later on, and I would just like to share a bit about the beginning of my journey and what has actually really inspired me to continue doing the work that I do within the renewable energy space. So I started working in the energy industry, mostly in the petroleum space, and I really loved it. One thing about myself is like I always give so much passion and energy in each and every single thing I do. Then one of my mentors referred me to work for a solar company in Kenya that really just sparked the interest in me. On how we can actually utilize renewable energy solutions, mostly in the solar space, to be able to impact communities, but also impact the economies. And the way I've always looked at the renewable energy industry is like, there is a fast right now, there is financing right now, and now is the time for countries within the continent like Kenya to be able to take up these technologies, to be able to capitalize as much as they can. So my policy in life as well has been, if I'm going to do a renewable energy solution, irrespective of what it is or where it is, it has to give more than the society. So it's beyond lighting, it's beyond just cooling. It has to affect the economies in that area. Literally, if we're going to set up a solar lighting solution, can this solar lighting solution actually generate income and create microeconomies? And because I believe that then escalates into building better and sustainable economies. And I believe that's the transition and the attitude that we should really give the energy, we should have within the energy space, that the transition that we should have with the finances and the economic availability of what we have right now. And it should do more than just the intended purpose. So I started mostly by doing energy audits and energy efficiency. That's something that also really just made me understand about the green energy transition and how renewable energy technologies have a space when it comes to the green energy transition for the African continent. So one thing I learned about Kenya was that there's so many technologies, leave alone even non-renewable energy technologies, that are being brought into the country, that are being taken up and being utilized to do industrial jobs or domestic jobs that aren't really efficient. And it made me really look deeper into the kind of technology that we're utilizing and how Africa takes part in guiding how these technologies are developed and how they're deployed. And that really is just my core reason to be able to, as an engineer and also as an entrepreneur, to be able to try to engineer locally developed technologies as a way of ensuring that Africa does not get left behind. We should take part in the technology transition and the knowledge transfer to be able to develop our own technologies that equally perform as energy technologies all over the world. Anyway, I'm going way ahead of myself. And I also realized that if we weren't really careful, that was almost a decade ago, rural energy communities are going to be left out in the green energy transition. We were such a fertile and perfect ground for so many players coming outside the country to come try out their technologies as a way of bringing them to maturity, not really to cause that much impact, but also to cause most economic gain for them. That also bothered me. And I felt if Africa is a perfect ground for testing out these technologies, then they should do more for the Africans themselves. They should gain Africans first, instead of developing other countries who are actually testing the technologies to come to maturity. And I saw how renewable energy technologies, the solar technology, the pico solar lighting, solar pumping, were being deployed in rural communities. And I felt they were a bit injurious to the rural economy, or rather, they weren't really benefiting them as much as they should. And I felt there's always a way we should relook at how we are delivering these clean energy technologies. For example, I've worked a bit in the solar pumping industry. That is where I really started now providing solutions for clean energy, especially in the rural and off-grid communities. And I was really invested in the solar pumping industry because I saw how there is already economic exchange in the agriculture sector. It's not really streamlined. There's so many challenges in smallholder farming. It's a wild space of its own and you really need to understand the market, the technology, the people, the culture, the water source, the climate variations before you're actually able to deliver a solution. And I saw how much if I'm going to deliver clean energy solution for a smallholder farmer as a way of financing these technologies to winners of the model of grant finance technologies, then you should actually do more. Like at the end of the day, if I give a farmer a solar pump, then really the impact metric that I would want to see is, are they getting more food on the table? Is the person that's selling the vegetables actually having better quality of food, because there is safety, there is quality of food, like were these vegetables actually watered when it needed to be watered? They're not withered, and that compromises the safety and the quality of the food that they're selling to the market. And does this actually translate to economic gain to the area around them? Does it mean now there are more vegetables in the market, and it means they're not shipping in vegetables, let's say, for example, from Imakweni, they're not shipping in vegetables all the way from Kiambu. That makes them a bit more expensive and influences, or rather takes away from the productivity of smallholder farmers. Like if solar pumping solution is being given to the smallholder farmers in Makueni, that means it should directly translate to how the economy in Makueni is developing, not just for the farmer, but for the mama mboga selling these vegetables, but then also for the people who are trading in that area. Because if I can afford more income as a mama mboga or a baba mboga, if those actually they are in the market, then it means I can afford maybe a beverage at this shop. I can afford it often. I can drive the industry, and I can also ensure that this shopkeeper actually stays and does not close the shop for the next years to come. And the origin actually started with a clean energy solution. That's how I've always envisioned the chain on how to supply or provide clean energy solutions in rural communities. It should do more than just the intended use. And it has been tricky trying to prove that, because most of the intended use solutions that are being driven in the rural are just mostly for a certain purpose or a certain objective. So trying to vision out the whole chain of how this is going to impact has been tricky, mostly because it's not finance. Nobody's going to finance you to do an evaluation of how solar pumping or pay-go is actually affecting a child going to school or their safety. But essentially, that's what I've always driven within the sector, that what we should insist, what we should focus on, so that African communities are not left out in the green energy transition. Now, working a bit with the smallholder farmers also taught me of how climate change we're in a cyclic, like a vicious cycle with climate change. So we have to really be careful of how we deliver these solutions without actually affecting or promoting climate change as much as the clean energy solutions. And to me, it even made me go a bit more into the water, energy, food nexus as a way of visualizing a whole ecosystem and a holistic way of delivering clean energy solutions. And just to break this a bit more clear, and I've spoken about the water, energy, food sectors in the past and even in several forums, and even my way of looking at the nexus has evolved over time. But to me, it's simply this way. If we're going to put all our solar pumping solutions, our solar panel with solar cold storage in the next 20 years to come, in the next 25 years to come, when our facilities degrade, what is the plan after? Are they going to be a landfill to degrade the environment more? Then now we, as the players in this industry, eventually will have contributed to climate change further. I find that quite unacceptable. And it's a risk that we could potentially face if we don't look at the end life cycle, if you don't look at the dependencies when it comes to providing solution and also getting economies out of it. And that's why I like working within the Nexus environment to be able to visualize, like, what are the trade-offs if you're providing these solutions? What happens in the next decade when I'm not around, or in the next few decades when I'm not around? Like, what happens to the environment? What happens to the economy when it comes to recycling? Can they actually handle this kind of technology? Was it safe for the environment? Like, did we have those technological considerations? Now, I know it might be a bit far-fetched, and sometimes the argument is we don't have the budget to look at how we're going to recycle these solar panels, or even these cables, or even these technologies, but we must. Really, we must. Because the way I look at it is, if financing is available on the table, irrespective of what kind of financing it is, whether it's grant, whether it's a VC financing, then that financing should look more to the environment. It should create more impact. This financing should be conscious enough, should be green, to consider, like, in the next 25 years, in the next few years, in the next 3 years, when the batteries are degrading, what happens next? So that's why I visualize that the renewable energy industry should move fast enough. As much as we are promoting adoption of all these solutions within the industry, we must think of the end life of them. We also must think of the impact of what we're doing to the people, to the economy. Are we including more women actually in the value chain? And are we including them so that we write our reports and say, oh God, I impacted like 50 women? Are we actually included there because we intend for more women to take part, to be mainstream in the industry? Like, we really have to be intentional and conscious about all those trade-offs and the interdependencies within the nexus. Anyway, I think thinking in that perspective is probably one of the reasons why I have taken an innovation approach and the impact approach, because I feel like we can't really separate the two. The first time that we started bringing in cold storage solution within the market, and it was literally guided by the fact that we gave farmers solar pumping solutions. They had more milk, but then they're throwing away the milk. Like, literally, what's the point? And the next thing that made sense was like, oh, refrigeration could actually still equally work. So how do we affordably and sustainably provide refrigeration? And the farmers are telling us, hey, we actually need refrigeration, solar refrigeration for our milk. Refrigeration is quite costly in the market, and the technologies that are there break down. There is no way of maintaining them and fixing them. The after-sales support is so fragmented and not well structured to be able to show that in the next 5 years, my fridge, which I paid for with money, whether it's my pay-go, whether it's my lease to own, whether it was a grant financing, actually still remain in operation post 5 years. Well, as an engineer, that bothers me because when I was in School of Engineering, I knew my sole purpose was to bring solutions, and the solution shouldn't be injurious to the environment, and shouldn't be injurious to the economy, and shouldn't be injurious to the people. So with that in mind, I focused on how do we sustainably bring cold storage solution in the market that still equally fit the needs of the smallholder farmers, fit the needs of the economy, can also be multi-purpose use, but then also looking at the future, how do we maintain them and ensure that their shelf life are extended as much as possible so that it is worth it paying right now $1,000 or 100,000 Kenya shillings or 200,000 Kenya shillings. And within 5 years' time, it was actually worth it, not like in 3 years' time, it's broken down and it has to be discarded. Now we have to go back to the drawing board and think of how we're going to get now. Obviously, the economy has changed. There's inflation. Instead of $1,000, now we're paying $1,500, even for the technology. To me, all those have to be put into consideration. And when we sat down to think about manufacturing, obviously, there's so many other things that came into the interplay. The first fridge that we brought into the market was a food fridge that we tested out, and it was picking up. It was exciting. It was costly. It had issues that really get in on how we provide after-sales support to the end user. And incidentally, COVID hit, so we had to pivot our solution from a food fridge to a vaccine refrigerator, because at the end of the day, the reasoning was, if we can't keep them alive from the COVID pandemic, then what's the point of really thinking of what is the future of how we're going to provide them technology to keep their milk cold? It didn't really make sense. So we pivoted our food fridge to be able to store vaccines. And today we are in iteration 3, but I always look at it like, the design is really, really important. The engineering is really, really important, but also the entrepreneurship aspect is very important. I find myself having morphed from an engineering perspective to an entrepreneur, but I can never really forget about how the technology impact the environment, also impact the people, as well as impacts the economy. So if you look at our delivery of like the VaxiBox refrigerator, and just to give a bit of back history, VaxiBox is a solar-powered fridge that is portable, and it's built for the healthcare use. So the storage of the vaccines, the heat-sensitive medical items, and it was a pivot because of the COVID pandemic that worked also quite well, because at the end of the day, there was need for cold storage within the industry. Sorry, excuse. But then really, the design of VaxiBox is to ensure that it lives as long as it can. It can, not just 3 years, then it becomes a landfill. It goes to the landfill, or we can't maintain it, or maybe we have to ship it back from to the manufacturer to be able to fix it. Then we try to force the end user to cater for the cost. That I didn't really find it fair in the industry. But then we have designed VaxiBox to be able to for us to be able to do like remote troubleshooting, and we're thinking of how we can actually do predictive maintenance. Because the way I look at it is, if we are going to deploy 1,000 refrigerators in northern Kenya or whatever part of Kenya, for me as a business, and also from what makes sense for engineering perspective, I'm not going to deploy even 100 technicians to run around and maintaining these things. No, that's going to be expensive, and it will increase the cost of these technologies. So if predictive maintenance can actually work and enable us to be able to know certain fridges are actually going to lose, the efficiency of the insulation is actually going to wear off after a certain time, we plan appropriately for it. If you can able to do like remote troubleshooting and maintenance, instead of deploying a technician from my office at Drop Access, can we get someone at Mandera who can actually go fix a fuse or go fix a certain item? It's much more affordable to the end user. It's much more affordable to the economy, but ensure at the end of the day, this solar refrigerator is up and running as long as it can and when it's needed. And the core issue that we're fixing, that is the cold chain gap, is not widened as much as possible. So I always look at deployment of these renewable energy technologies. We can't really forget the engineering aspect of it. I know if you take any other entrepreneur who is trading, maybe a wholesaler of pumps. You can't start telling them, oh, now you have to recruit an engineering team. No, but that's a consideration they have to put. What is the after-sales support that we're going to give the end user when this pump breakdowns? It is just business as usual. They paid for it, so that's it. You paid your money, or you're making your payment. So we do like a first aid fix so that you continue making your pay. Go, no, we have to think of the end life of this pump. It has to live as long as possible. It has to serve the environment appropriately. As much as we want to be here for the next decades to come, there's a generation behind me. I am a mother. I want my child to grow up in a safe environment that has been mitigated from the effects of climate change. That's continuity that I want to see. So we have to be really, really conscious of how do we deliver these solutions and how we present them to the public. And I know we've had so many questions about why we try to insist on the engineering aspect, and yet we're an African country, and we have so many engineers. I'm an engineer myself. I know so many brilliant engineers, but we might not really have the capability of being able to manufacture this technology within the continent, or even to ensure that there is an end of life cycle for them that is appropriate and also in line with what the international standards guide or what the environment actually needs. But then the way I look at it, like we don't live in a silo. We don't have to do this alone. And I'm always having discussions with international manufacturers and technology developers and telling them, hey, if we're going to work with you, then you have to guarantee something for me: technology transfer and knowledge transfer. You can't hog all this on your own in Europe or China or in India without letting Africa be part of this. We're the ones going to be users of this technology. We want to create jobs for our people. There's so many young people who are coming up in the industry, and they need jobs. And there's an opportunity within the energy sector that can actually create those jobs for them. So they should give us they should provide knowledge transfer. Who knows? Maybe with our knowledge, it can actually contribute for them to develop better technologies. Or yet, better, we can actually co-develop these technologies to serve the economy well, to make them much more affordable, to serve the environment better. We think of the end of life for them, so that at the end of the day, we don't affect the environment even much further as we're introducing more technologies in the market. But also at the end of the day, to really serve the impact and the purpose of what it's intended for. I find it, and I've said it over again, I've interacted with a few technologies in the market, and personally, I try to use them myself. And I feel like I'm always trying to fit into the technology. I don't really find that appropriate. I don't think that is human-centered enough. So even the technology developers has to put Africa at the center of it, has to put Kenya, the rural woman and the rural farmer, at the center of this development. And that, to me, I think it's an impact way of designing, and more than just human-centered design. Because if I'm going to use a solar lamp, it should fit appropriately for my needs and for my persona. It should build me as a person, should build my skill, it shouldn't be difficult to use, and I shouldn't try to fit into the technology. And it might be hard trying to design something at the desk, trying to think of the end user, but I don't think it's so hard to go to the end user and ask them, hey, what is it that you need? So that's why I'm always insisting with the international developers, build with Africa. Let Africa be part of the transition. And when I started designing the cold storage, the refrigerators, I didn't find a designer who thought that they should build with us. But I told them, I'm going to try to see this out, see how difficult is it to develop a refrigerator locally here in Kenya, and try to prove the point that we can actually develop this. It might not be to the standard that is required, but then again, their standards, they can actually change. But if we build together, if you bring your technology with your years of research and refrigeration, with my knowledge of what the African healthcare market needs, if we put our minds together, then we actually build more robust technologies and something that really fit within the needs. And I always call them to be intentional about the kind of technologies they're bringing to the environment. And I deal a lot with the rural communities, and there's so many challenges. Obviously, there's affordability challenge. That's why there's always like, oh, it's risky to invest in smallholder farmers. But I think that there are ways we can work together to be able to de-risk these technologies. And I feel the greatest need still remains in the rural communities. Obviously, with all the risk and all the issues that still happen, we still have a long way to go. But still, the technologies are here now. We can take them up now. We just have to find ways of working together. We have to find ways of understanding the needs of these rural communities. And I see the secret, obviously, beyond lighting. The secret lies in the productive use assets, because the productive use assets will give you the end use that is needed, whether it's lighting, whether it's cold storage, whether it's pumping, but then also it will add into the economy. One way, whether we like it or not, of transforming African communities is by transforming the economy, however small it is. I believe 1,000 microeconomies will bring one strong economy. Let's start with the microeconomies. If it's too risky, let's fragment it further. Let's de-risk them further. Let's see what works. Because at the end of the day, a microeconomy is a microeconomy that is producing income and finances. And this, at the end of the day, it's going to be one huge pool of finances or one huge economic development for a block that eventually translates to change. It translates to advancement that you want. If the place I live in, Makueni County, and I've helped them over in Kajiado County, can be able to buy their own food, that's good, because it means at the end of the day, there's better nutrition for the household. It means we get to win off our people from depending so much on the donor funding. And the donor funding has actually caused a bit more detrimental effects to our economy and retardation instead of really growth that was expected, as much as it's money that is really big into us. And don't get me wrong, I've actually benefited from donor funding. It's good when it's put in the right use, but then I don't feel like that's the future for Africa. So we have to think of all the 360 aspects, the environment, the economic development, sustainable economic development for our people and our communities. The technology that we're using it. Is Africa part of the development of this economy? If you're designing for rural communities, are you doing more than just lighting? Are you fixing more than just getting somebody from point A to point B? What does that mean for the economy? What does that mean to their families? What does that mean to the children who are at risk of diseases? What does that mean to the women who face insecurity each and every single day? So I was saddened a bit when I was trying to develop a solar pumping solution for a community in Kajiado. And I learned that the women in that community actually, the biggest risk wasn't even, I don't know, the violence or insecurity or the oppression that they face in their homestead, was actually walking through the thicket and being bitten by a snake or a scorpion or God knows what wild animal. I feel like in this age and time, the access to these renewable energy technologies like water that has been availed through solar pumping that is affordable also is a human right and a human decency. So at the end of the day, the human decency and the humanity falls at the center of it all. And I challenge each and every single technology making the market. I know at the end of the day, entrepreneurship drives the world. The economy makes sense. If you don't talk about money, then why we even talk about why we're doing this? But then we should try to balance the economy and the impact that we're giving to the people. And we should look at how these technologies that we're building, that we're bringing to the African market, whether we're building them locally, whether we're importing them, whether we're collaborating with developers, how they affect the whole ecosystem. And we look at the future of when we are not here, how is it going to affect the economy there? Are we going to live a society that is burdened with recycling? Because there's a landfill of batteries, the lithium ion cells and everything else that they can't handle. And now it's injurious to the environment or it's taking away land, and yet there's a growing population. How will that play out? Are we going to build an economy where we can't completely recycle solar panels because the economy just can't handle it? We really have to put those measures into place. That's why I always call on to engineers and product developers and the economists to work together and just develop how we transfer these technologies in the best way possible, beyond just, I'm selling a solar pump or I'm selling a solar lighting, you're going to exchange it for money, business is good, we go on own separate ways. No. To me, that's completely unacceptable. And I believe, given the kind of work that I've done and also seen people doing within the Kenyan landscape, and even the interaction that I have with other Africans in other countries, I believe as Africa, we can actually take charge of these technologies and we can include women in them. And we can bring up more women entrepreneurs in the space. When I started running Drop Access, it was very, very difficult because I started in the NGO environment. I also didn't understand so much of the NGO environment. But then I learned also how sustainability comes into play for us to be able to look at the future and how we plan, how we're delivering clean energy technologies in the market. And I shifted into the limited company space and the entrepreneurial space, because I know without balancing or how the economy comes into play, then really there's not really much I'm going to do. I'm just going to get donor funding, supply pumping or solar lighting solutions, not think of the end life of these solutions. And that to me was unacceptable. But now I've gotten to the point where I speak with so much authority that there's so much work for us to do and it can be done. If it's local manufacturing within the continent, if it's us venturing into deep technology, and I know there's been questions of, is Africa ready to venture to deep technology, into manufacturing? Yeah, this is the type of Africa to actually venture into manufacturing, because then there's opportunity to create jobs for young people. And we have such a huge burden that is coming ahead. It's not even ahead, it's already happening. How many engineers call me all the time, say, hey, Norah, I did mechanical engineering, I've graduated, I don't have a job. It hurts me because I was like there a few years ago, and the trend is continuing to increase. What do we do about this? What do we do about these new people coming to the environment? I feel like if we create an ecosystem that allows development, deployment, and Africa becomes part and gives a voice to how these technologies are being developed and deployed, and where the money goes, how it's being distributed, we need a fair share of it. We have a chance of tackling so many issues, not just the 100% universal access, no. Employment for the young people. Equity for each and every single person, equity in the economy. If technologies are being deployed in Kenya, Kenya deserves a huge chunk of that economy. That all that money shouldn't go back to the developer. We deserve a fair chance to that economy, because that means it will develop our people, it will provide more amenities for young people, and we get to be part of that transition, not just being players or chess pieces being moved around for it to feel like it's now a green energy transition. So thank you all so much. I'm really, really honored to be here, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Norah. You have asked us to be very human-centered in everything that we do, that we should put the people that we are putting interventions for at the heart of that, and not just throw out technology and not just throw out solutions for the sake of that, but what do the people need where they are exactly? And to balance between economy and impact. And impact here is making a difference at the ground level, at the micro space. Thank you for that very, very impassioned and passionate speak. We are with you, we feel you. We must not have any barriers in the way of us making change. Let me ask for questions from the floor for Norah. Online team, put your questions in the chat as well. There are questions on the floor of the house. We can have the mics go around. We have a question on table, that will be table 1. And we'll label you table 2. So table 1 and 2, let's pass over the mics and Norah can take the questions. There we go. All right. Please introduce, this is a networking forum too, online as well. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. So as you speak, introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then ask us your question.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Norah. It's nice to meet you. So my name is Kelvin Odhiambo. I am an energy efficiency solutions service provider. First of all, that was a very good speech, and picked up a lot of very useful tips and information, and also thoughts. I like the part where you are thinking through the entire value chain of the energy, renewable energy system. That doesn't just end at the commercial purpose, you know, that stops with most entrepreneurs. But now there is one thing that came to my that has been lingering in my mind with regards to most of these technologies, the modern ones. Let's say, for example, the Vaxibox. It's Vaxibox, right?
Yes.
Because Vaxibox, in a way, falls within this, what I would cluster as modular technological interventions. And so with certain reasonable judgment, we could classify it with solutions like MCOPA, maybe the box, you know, the ones that are built with the ideology to serve the underserved, correct? To help resolve or to help bridge the energy poverty. Now, as a developer, an entrepreneur, and also as I have seen or heard from your passionate speech, an upcoming Pan-Africanist. Do you visualize a scenario where Vaxibox may play, some sort of an ideological role in keeping us as a people or as a continent a bit lazy in the sense that you see, we have big problems, okay? And you're doing a good job by trying to solve some of them. But now if we look at healthcare, for example, we need to address healthcare as a universal problem in a country like Kenya. Have you challenged yourself, to think of Vaxibox beyond being a solution that just fits into the micro need that exists now, but as a solution that can scale up into something that fits into a bigger picture, so that we are not confined to solving micro solutions, which then would end up in programs that are just products to be sold, where numbers then become the main thing.
All right.
Just that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's take all the questions. Then, Norah, you can answer them at a go. I think there was a question on this table as well. Are there any online questions, team? No? All right. We'll ask your question, then Norah can pick them up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rita Omondi from SocoFresh. So SocoFresh basically deploys hybrid cold storage in the rural areas to curb post-harvest loss. So Norah, thank you for the good job. My question is, having been in the energy industry, is there hope for energy industries to integrate hydroelectric power and solar power to cut on cost and enhance socio-economic growth? The reason why I'm asking this is, of course, when you go to the rural areas, electricity is very expensive. Sorry, I don't know if I can say KPLC per se. Yes, sorry. It's pretty much expensive. And of course, when now we turn to solar energy, we can only afford the small, the aspect of it that is used in lighting. For you to do other things like, of course, pumping your shamba or, storing your produce, you have to buy several solar panels, which are equally expensive. So is there a way these two sources of energy can integrate to cut on costs?
Great. So Norah, we have two questions, one on the scalability. Oh, there's yet another question there. Let's pick it up. There's one on the scalability of Vaxibox. Have you boxed Vaxibox into a box? Or is it scalable? Can it move beyond the micro level at which it is playing? There's a question about integration, interconnectivity, how access. It's actually an access question you're asking, because right now there's a barrier to access there. How do we overcome that? Please shoot your shot, gentlemen. Introduce yourself and shoot your shot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Sande Olocho from Westlight CBO. Norah is a very good partner and friend of ours. And I've picked the point about the youth. Norah, actually, we have her story is carried in this book that we have for schools, STEM schools. And I was glad to hear on the floor that she's been to, was it Kenya High?
Yeah, and many other schools.
And many other schools.
Yes.
Now, actually, Norah is, I think, is one of the leading mentors when it comes to STEM education. And we do believe at Westlight, and of course in liaison with Norah, that the youth should carry the renewable energy message. They should be inspired to pursue courses that promote renewable energy. These young men and women should be able to fix a little light that has issues in the home because they are familiar with that technology. So STEM education should not only limit itself to the physics percent, the chemistry, but let there be a particular focus on renewable energy as well. Before I come to my, I would like to know from you, Norah, how do you plan to really step up that push to get the youth to take up this? Because as an old mzee myself, I'm inspired when I see young people take it up, because we know they will be there, this will be there tomorrow. And I should also mention that, Norah, in this book, your story is right in here. If you are here, you are going to see a copy of it. But when you come back, you'll get a copy. So the other question I have is regarding all we are discussing here revolves around the UN SDG number 7, clean energy, affordable energy. But then the United Nations Social Development Goals, when it comes to matters of energy, is very silent on people living with disabilities. There seems to be no specific intervention on how to make them part of this move to lift them up as we take up renewable energy, clean energy, affordable energy. We are running and we are leaving somebody behind, the people living with disabilities. At Westlight in Western Kenya, we are doing that deliberately. For every, say, 100 lights that we give the community to pay for, we have at least 15 to 20 given to people with disabilities who may not be able to afford that technology. So it is part of our CSR. So on your part, Norah, what would be your take on what the UN says when it comes to clean and affordable energy, and then this gray area of, access to energy for people living with disabilities? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Norah. Let's respond to those.
Okay, thank you all so much. Very important question. And some actually challenge me. So to the first question about the bigger picture, so that VaxiBox is not actually sorting out micro needs, I will not lie and say there is a very good opportunity for us here to be able just to sell VaxiBox, fix the only vaccine solution, be like any other product developer and supplier, and just get a hockey stick growth within the industry. And it's been done before, it's proven, and it works. But like you said, I'll be like any other MCOPA or any other solution provider in the market. And we have that opportunity, and I've faced it, and I acknowledge it's a possibility. Like, we'll just be like, I'll be selling the VaxiBox story for the next 10 years as we enjoy profits and I speak in high level forums. But the way I look at it, I will have failed Africa for real if VaxiBox can't grow into enabling Kenya to start having its own manufacturing, not just for refrigerators. If we can't play a role in guiding the policy on how manufacturing is being done, on how renewable energy technologies manufacturing is being done within the continent, how we procure, how we actually develop these technologies to equally work anywhere, then really the purpose of us trying to manufacture VaxiBox will have failed even before it takes off. So yes, we do have a chance to just solve micro needs, become a solutions provider, and that's it. And I will pocket the profit and go to the Bahamas and enjoy. But this is how I look at VaxiBox. And my thought has evolved with time. So I thought of developing VaxiBox because I live in a rural community and I deeply saw the need when I had my daughter and had issues like with vaccination. Like, it made sense. I'm like, develop a refrigerator. You're an engineer. Try to solve this problem. Help your child. Then it becomes, I can't help my daughter alone. There are other children in this society. So maybe a refrigerator that actually helps the whole society works. And it morphs like that. But then the way I've seen how VaxiBox has developed with taking trial one into the market, and then the market giving us feedback of, we need a fridge that looks like this, we need a fridge that can do like this. It's made me realize the potential on what we're sitting on. This is beyond us alone. I've seen 21-year-olds developing IoT solutions that can fit into VaxiBox. That's why I have come to look at innovation. It's beyond just the box. What other peripheral technologies can actually help the VaxiBox or come out of the VaxiBox? I've seen how the IoT solution that we develop can develop into an AI solution that helps Kenya to plan vaccination, develop its immunization database, not just for us to distribute many VaxiBox in the market, no, so that Kenya knows exactly what's our budget this year or in the next 10 years to come for healthcare. That's why I visualize this innovation what it should do for the next years to come. There should be other ideas coming out of it. There should be other innovations coming out of it. It should be, we made a Vaxibox refrigerator. Is somebody else actually taking up all the manufacturing structures that we streamline to be developing food refrigerators and making them affordable? Or taking up the whole structure for local manufacturing and manufacturing something else so that we become a producer state other than a retailer and a consumer country. That's how I visualize the bigger picture for Vaxibox. It's more than just us making the 35% profit margin or whatever on the refrigerator. No, it must do more for Kenyans. If I'm going to suffer in this industry, trying to bring this product to the market, fighting all the other competitors and the 49 pre-qualified WHO refrigerators who are not African, trying to bring us all down, if we are going to survive this, then it can't just be for the profits of Vaxibox. That's unacceptable to me. It should give us more. It should guide how we bring technologies, how we manufacture technologies, and not just clean energy technologies, literally each and every single technology. We should be a manufacturing country. We should be a manufacturing continent. It should trickle how Africa adopts its own technology. How do we fit these systems into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? How do we open up Africa to become a bigger economy? So I was in Gabon for the Africa Energy Summit, conference that happened a few weeks ago. And I learned that the country imports butter and milk all the way from France. That annoyed me completely. And I won't even mince my word, that really annoyed me. In this continent where we produce butter, we produce milk, why are we shipping it? Is it that we don't know? Is it that the structures are not being streamlined? It should be streamlined in each and every single country. Countries should develop themselves with economies. There is hope in manufacturing. There is hope in assembly. If you can manufacture it locally here in Kenya, can it be done in South Africa? Can it be done in another country? And we do the hub and spoke model where we are serving the whole continent with locally developed technologies. Like seriously, does it annoy you that the raw materials for the lithium-ion batteries come from the continent, but you can't even make a single cell? That should be the bigger picture where we need to get to, so that we employ our young people, we keep the most of the profits and build our cities, build our economies, build the housing, we streamline the urban crisis that is looming because of the population of everybody migrating to Nairobi. Let's streamline that. Let's build greener cities. That money is not going to come from donor financing and debts. The debt are actually killing us. Let's create our own economies. Is it a pipe dream? I don't know. Maybe it is a pipe dream, but I think there is an opportunity for us here, so long as we're in this industry and we've seen where the money comes from and how we can actually make the money. I hope that sufficiently answer your questions on why we will not be a micro producer or a micro thought, or just as somebody who's just trading in the box and just fixing one problem of vaccination. That to me is unacceptable. It should fix the whole healthcare system. It should trickle down to manufacturing. To trickle down on how African manufactures and Africa actually manufactures for other African countries. So the next question, how we now integrate the hydro and the solar to cut cost. So I worked briefly in that industry of trying to see how do we do distribution of power that is already being produced. And I think the answer to this question lies in the kind of policies that Kenya is going to be pushing and in the kind of leadership that Kenya is going to have. If you can't streamline our power purchase agreements. Okay, I used to have a friend, a German friend. Okay, she's my friend still. And she told me that in their village, they're living in an energy village where they're producing their own power, they're consuming their own power, they pay for it. Why can't we adopt such in Kenya? We all know why we can't. We all know the restrictions. And it all goes back to the kind of leaders, the kind of policies that we push. And we are the players in this industry. If I want my village home in Oyugis to utilize power from the biggest river there, hydropower, that should happen. I will be able to pay for that power. It's been produced there. It should be affordable. It makes sense. We don't have to build insane grids. What if the ecosystem can actually just build and maintain its grids? Like Ketraco can help us develop it, but then we actually do pay for the power, so we can, if the grid degrades over 5 years, we can actually pay for the grid instead of thinking, oh, now we need to go change the whole line from Nairobi to Mandera. We need a whole debt facility. If we can bring up those microgrids and the people who are utilizing them to actually pay for them, that would be wonderful. But then there is no point of building up microgrids, the solar, the hydros, and wherever we are going to set them up, if there is no economy to pay for them. Even as we build these grids, let's build the economies. That's how productive energy use come. Are there industries that are going to take it up? Are there enough households that are going to take it up? How do we develop industries to take it up? Then again, I go back to manufacturing. If we can manufacture Vox in Makueni, and we have like there's so much sun in Makueni. We have like a power industry, a whole solar grid, and we're consuming that power, then it means I'll be able to pay for the power in Makueni. But are the policies actually permissive? But even if it's the policy, at the end of the day, we'd be like, we blame the government. Who is the government? There's no single person who's saying, I'm the government, I'll take responsibilities for this. No, it's us, the leaders in these spaces. We're the ones who form the policies. We're the ones who inform how this is going to be done. If we stay with the corrupt ways, as drop access did, it means the whole ecosystem is going to be corrupt, and there's nothing really much you're going to do. It starts with us to be intentional about the kind of things that we want and the kind of future that we want. I hope that answers that question. So how do we plan to help the youth and to take up the STEM? So I always use my real life raw candid story to tell entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs who are getting to the space that, first of all, it's not going to be easy. I tell them the whole story. This is how we started Drop Access. This is how we built it. This is how we're capitalizing on the finances that are in the market. And I give them the steps, because I've noticed that there are so many training accelerators in the industry who come and say, we're going to help your startup grow or your idea grow, but they have their own goals of achieving, of counting. These are the African startups that we help to grow in this industry. This is the financing that we use to finance us more from our government. No, but I tell them this is the candid truth. Doing business in this sector, if you're a woman, this is how it happens. If you're a young person, this is how it happens. If this is an idea stage, forget about getting financing from I don't know, like from an idea. Things work differently in Kenya. Can you actually build your product the cheapest way possible? And I always give talks on how to develop a product within the Kenyan sector, from an idea to an actual product, and you do it the most affordable way and get it to market to prove it, because at the end of the day, the market will determine what you sell it to them, how much they're going to pay for it. So how fast can you develop your idea and bring it to market? And it's the same way with STEM. How many people can we talk to them and tell them the candid truth that STEM, first of all, STEM goes in all sectors. So you can't say, if you don't do engineering, if you don't do the sciences, you're not in STEM. No, each and every single person who is interacting with the technology you found, you're already in STEM. So how do you capitalize on all those opportunities that in your environment to actually benefit and learn the most from STEM? And how do we do self-development? So I have such a huge issue with the kind of generation that is leaving campuses now, but it's okay. I understand what happened, something went wrong. And when I'm recruiting people, I'm like, can you just write properly or read properly, or can you present yourself well? And we have to start from scratch in order to train them to work in the industry, to have work ethics, or maybe fit within their products. We have to teach our young people to learn how to develop themselves. Because if we don't develop ourselves, don't we develop ourselves, it means Kenya won't develop itself, and Kenya is going to continue depending on donor funds. And it takes me back to, how do we not leave the people living with disabilities even within the framework of the SDG 7? And so there was a heated debate sometime last week of, we are the ones suffering most from the effects of climate change. It's true really. The African countries are the ones paying the biggest burden for climate change. So there is the argument of, should be compensated. We should be very careful of how we ask for this compensation from the West, because if we just go and demand, like, give us cash, you owe us, you need to, pay for the effects of the climate change, then we solidify ourselves as a nation that needs to be helped. So how do we ask compensation for climate change? Do we accept the funds because they need to pay the money? What about we tell them, hey, since you need to compensate us, put us on the table, put us on the decision-making and the negotiations on how funds are going to be used globally and divided, then we're waiting for a big fat check to be written. And that goes to how we do not leave the people living with disabilities and even other kind of disability, because there are so many forms of disability, like economy and all that. Let's stop looking at it like they need a grant facility, include them in the economy. Give them work to do, or provide for them, or mainstream them into the economy so that they're able to afford their own solar kits or solar lighting solutions. They contribute positively to the economy. It also helps their mood and the perception and how they contribute. And we stop looking at it like PLDs is a pandemic of some sort. No, if so long as they're alive, they can do some work, they can be mainstream into the economy to help themselves. They should equally contribute to the economy. But if we position ourselves as help people, help nation, then we can't really grow. They will always be, you guys need some grant financing. If you use the development funds, well, essentially we should develop ourselves. Africa should develop their own clean energy strategies. We should. So those are my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Norah, for those very, very impactful value-adding takeaways. All the questions have been very comprehensively answered. We have the SDG 10 on reduced inequalities. So anybody who wants to run with the inclusion agenda, whether we are including at the bottom of the pyramid, whether we are including, like Norah has said, persons with disabilities in a healthy way and not a help way, whether we are including gender-wise, whether we are including for financial inclusion, whatever kind of inclusion we want to achieve, let's run with it under SDG 10. Thank you very much, Norah, for your time, for giving of yourself, for such passion, for speaking to us. We feel like saying amen to everything you are saying. For sure, this is our time as the continent to stop being that continent that is putting out a begging bowl and be the continent that is extending great solutions, because we have them for ourselves. And we start here and now with what we have, where we have, how we have it right now. And that is your message to us. Norah, today we are taking, this is an action-filled, action-packed, action-oriented conference, and you have spoken right into it. Another round of applause for Norah. Thank you so much, so much, so much. Good people
Thank you,
online.
Caroline.
And yes, yes, yes. We have loved you. Absolutely, absolutely.